YouTube, what's going on? So I know I haven't made a video in a while, but today I wanted to come and talk about a very important topic that a lot of people deal with when they're bench pressing, and that's pec health. This is how to not tear your pec. This is how to avoid more pec injuries. And as somebody who has been relatively lucky with minimal pec injuries, no pec tears that I am aware of, and I've been pretty lucky. Yesterday, I dealt with a very bad scare on my right pec here that I was really worried that it was about to tear completely off the bone. And so today, I want to bring you guys a video and explain how you can avoid this because, pec health is a real thing. Tearing your pec, it's very common. It may not even seem that common. You may think it's a freak injury, but the reality is that someone you probably know or follow on Instagram has dealt with multiple torn pecs. Someone you probably know or follow on Instagram probably has a torn pec right now. And so today I wanted to talk about how to avoid pec tears, injuries, stuff like that. And before we could dive into the pec, I want to talk about the shoulders. So I'm going to basically draw up a little diagram here of a shoulder basically for, idiots. Let's just say a shoulder for idiots, right? So if there's anybody, that really understands shoulder health, stuff like that, understand that, yes, everything I say may not be scientifically perfect, but this is to appeal to the genuine population, right? So here we have your body. I'm just going to draw a little squiggle and say, like, this is your body, right? This is where your shoulder is going to attach. This is your body. Right after here, you have this little jelly, and then you actually have your shoulder, and then you have your arm, and we'll put a big muscle on there. The diagram looks a little bit stupid. Stay with me. This is what you'd call your shoulder labrum. Now, labral tears are common all the time with the hips because the hips work very similar to the shoulder. And now your shoulder, it's a ball and socket joint. It's something like that. I don't even know. Here is where, this is the ball, this is where it sits, and this is your labrum, which allows your shoulder to sit in that socket correctly, right? So when you condense this together, here's the ball, here's the labrum, here's the shoulder. What this labrum allows is because if you just put this ball into the socket with no labrum, you would not be able to move your shoulder at all. What this amazing labrum does to us humans is it allows us to move our shoulder all the way up here, all the way back here, all the way up here. Really, we can move our shoulder anywhere. There are limitations, but typically, if we had no muscle, we basically would be able to move our shoulder in any which way, which I think is very, very cool. So with that being said, understand that this model by itself is not very stable. Just this ball and socket joint or whatever it's called is not very stable. You just have a ball, a labrum, and a socket. That is basically all that you have for the shoulder. Now, there are muscles that surround the shoulder, right? And this is what is keeping your shoulder from falling off the bone. And that is when we get into your pec. Your pec is a huge muscle, believe it or not. I mean, I don't know how big it is compared to the rest of your body, but your pec is a very big muscle. Your pec attaches all over the bones as well. So if this is, man, we're going to draw another terrible diagram again. So body, let's say you got like a little bit of a lat and, you're caught in the collarbone and then you have like a trap. Let's just draw a pec and I'll give a nipple. So you understand what I'm talking about here. And then I'm going to draw, we have your socket here, your little labrum, your ball, and then your arm, and in here, we have a bicep. Perfect. This looks completely terrible, but this is how I want it for the diagram, so stay with me. Your chest right here connects to all up here. It connects everywhere. Your chest literally connects everywhere. It connects in here. It connects up by your collarbone up here. It connects in here. And these are like what these scribbles are for. All that it connects. It connects all through up here. But your chest also connects to your bicep, right? So we have this labrum, we have this ball, and then, we said this bicep. But if we were to crunch this all together, all of this would also be filled connected to your pec. That's why if you've ever seen the picture, if I can find it, I'll post up the picture of, I think it was Scott Mendelson, I think that's how you say his last name, the purple torn pec. Like, it's the craziest pec tear ever. But you can see that his bicep looks torn. It looks like there is all this purple right in here. It looks like his bicep is torn. But the truth is that your pec is just connected to so many regions that there is a lot of stress on your pec at one time. And when you reach such an insane muscle tear like that, let's say it tears from up here or tears in here or even kind of by the bicep, when this muscle boom, there's going to be all this leakage of blood in here. That's why he had, it was black and blue all the way down to here and all the way up here. Now, why am I explaining this? Just so you kind of understand the way the pec works. Why did I explain the shoulder? Because I want you to understand that the pec is one of the main contributors that is protecting this very weak ball and socket joint that allows your arm to move like this, if you see what I'm saying. So boom, that is enough of the technical aspect. Now let's talk about how to keep your pec healthy. How do we not tear a pec? How do we not end up like Scott Mendelson? You know what I'm saying? So obviously there are going to be freak injuries. You can't really escape the freak injuries, Like the video of Larry Wheeler spotting the guy in Dubai, and you can literally see the fibers tear off of his pec as his pec come in like this. Scary stuff, but some of those freak injuries, could he have, not torn his pec today? Probably he shouldn't have gone for, 400 or 500 pounds while he was extremely low body fat, probably wasn't getting as many carbs intake, stuff like that. But how can the genuine population stop getting pec tears, right? Because pec tears are very common, like I said at the start of the video. And here's a myth that I'm going to debunk. You do not need to be benching a lot of weight to tear a pec. Keep this in mind. Please keep this in mind. You do not need to be benching a lot of weight to tear a pec. Now, will your pec tear with a 135? Most likely not. But if you're benching 225, 250, 300, 350, pec tears can happen. They can absolutely happen. It is not just a big, strong Mr. Steroid man, injury. It can happen to anybody. And so that is why, one, you need to pay attention to this, but two, you need to be aware when you're doing these lifts how to protect. All right, let's actually get into the protection, right? So I'm going to hit you guys with there's a spider here. All right, I'm going to hit you guys with 3 ways to protect your pec. Sorry, there was a spider there that completely caught me off guard. All right, here we go. We're going to come with number 1. We're going to talk about the retraction of the scapula, right? So I'm going to say RTS. Retraction scapula, RTS. Simplified. Retracting your scapula. You may see sometimes when you're at the gym, if you do the pec fly machine, a lot of people will put a Bosu ball on the pec fly machine to get an extra stretch into their chest here, and then at the top they really squeeze like this. The majority of pec injuries will come from when your scapula is protracted. So retracted scapula means that you're squeezing it, right? You can see my back here squeezing it. That's basically when, let's say I took this pen and I put it in between my spine and I was trying to squeeze it. I was trying to be a big guy. That's how I explain it to a lot of my clients. You want to be a big guy. You want to walk around like this. You're retracting your scapula to walk around like big guy, holding the pen in the middle of your back. That is a retracted scapula. A protracted scapula is homeless man, basically. That's just how I'll explain it. I'm not dissing on homeless people or anything like that. But you've all seen that one homeless guy. He's walking like this. You feel so terrible for him. Hopefully all the homeless people out there can get their lives together. Really feel bad for those people. But on with the diagram. Protracted scapula is like this. You see the poor homeless man walking around. It's very sad. His scapula is protracted like this. That is when your scapula is not like here. You're allowing it to completely slump over. And now, why do the pec injuries happen here compared to here? Because there is much more range of motion like this compared to when you're like this. This is why they tell you on the bench press to get into an arch, not only just for so you have less range of motion, you can bench press more, but for safety as well. Because what this is doing when you are in this, retracted area, this is tightening your back, which is giving your chest more of a stable area to press from. Even if you're doing, chest flies, and when you come out, you allow your chest to come forward, and then even when you come in, you keep your chest up here and you squeeze in through here. Now, if you do chest flies and you take it back here and then you start protracting as you squeeze together. This is putting it in a vulnerable area because think about how much how much flexion is in your shoulder when you're like this compared to when you're like this. Think about how much more that shoulder goes. And why does it matter if your shoulder's moving backwards if you're worried about your pec? Well, if you're allowing your shoulder to come back extra amount, you're putting more stress on that bicep here, which, remember, I told you the chest connects to the bicep. You're putting way more stress on here, and then by the time that you're up here, you are fully extended, you're squeezing as hard as you can, and this is typically where the injuries will happen. So if you watch that insane incline tear, what I believe happened with him was he was retracted, right? He took it down and he started pressing up, and right as he was about here, he started to lose the retraction of his scapula, started to hit an area like this, which put a ton of pressure right here on this joint, and that is when you can see the pec tear off the bone. Very, very scary. That is what almost happened to me yesterday. So I was doing 500 for 3, got this PR. First 2 were easy, and the third rep, I got into this place where I was right here. And so my triceps were lacking, but I still wanted to finish the rep. So what did I do? And able to give my triceps a little bit more, right? Because I was in this perfect position. To give my triceps a little bit more, I allowed my back to protract. I was retracted. I allowed my back to protract, and that did move my triceps up a little bit, but it put an immense amount of stress on my chest right here. I did finish the rep, but I didn't actually know until the next set when I tried 405. I only did 1 rep, racked it. That was good. The next set is when I realized, holy crap, that protracted scapula that I used to finish the bench press put an seriously unbelievable amount of force on my chest, which gave me the almost torn chest, right? Or the almost torn pec. That was a very scary moment yesterday. So the number one key that I can tell you to do, retract your scapula. Retracted scapula. That's RTS. I can feel like spelling out the whole thing. Number 2, hydrate. I'm probably going to spell this wrong. Don't judge. Hydrate. Now, muscles carry water. Not all the way, but they do. If you are dehydrated, if you are, not even just dehydrated, if you're not on a ton of food, you are more likely for any injury. Think about this. Which version of you would be better to go run 10 miles? The version of you that has been resting for 5 days, eating, drinking, sleeping, all of this, or the version of you that slept 3 hours, didn't eat anything for the past 2 days, didn't drink anything for the past 2 days, you're extremely dehydrated, Which version? Obviously the version that is more hydrated. And that's the exact same way it goes when bench pressing. You have to understand that your muscles use energy. Your muscles need to be hydrated. You yourself needs to be hydrated. I don't know all the ins and outs, the scientific version, but when you are hydrated, not just for running a long distance or playing a football game or whatever, when you are hydrated, you're stronger. Your body will take on less injuries. You will feel better. If you sleep more, you will feel better. So being hydrated, eating enough, sleeping enough, this will allow, pec health to keep going. This will allow your pecs to keep working normally. But when you get into that time where you're sleeping 3 hours, you're not hydrating, you're not eating, you're not doing all of this stuff, it's the same effect as running a mile. You're going to have less energy, which means your pecs are going to have less energy. So if you try to put the normal load when your pecs have less energy, higher risk of tearing your pec right there. And then number three, this is a big shocker. Stop. Number 3 is just stop. If you feel a shoulder pain, a chest pain, and it feels odd. I'm not talking about like, there's a little pinch in my shoulders here, it feels weird. If you feel shoulder, chest pain, that feels like weird. It is weird. It is not like a little pinch like I just said. It is a weird pain. Stop. Just stop. After yesterday, after the 405, when I actually felt the pain, I called it for the day. All I did was shoulder press. It didn't really annoy my chest. I did tricep extensions. I did no more chest that day. I completely called it. Even though, the pec, it wasn't like that bad of a pain, but your body will always give you signs. And now, people have been saying this forever, listen to your body. And that is absolutely the truth when it comes to something like a pec health. If your pec is not feeling good, you will most likely, I would say probably 90% of pec injuries can be prevented because you will feel it on a warm up, you will feel it the day before, you will feel it in a different workout, and you will know yourself that it's not feeling good. But if you think like, I'm this big bad tough guy, I'm going to go in and lift anyways, you may get away with it, or you may run into a life-changing injury. And that's honestly the truth. If you get a pec tear, keep in mind, seriously, keep this in mind. If you get a pec tear, you cannot write with this hand because they typically put you in a sling. So if you are right-handed, you tear your right pec and you are in a sling, you will need to do everything with your left hand. You will need to respond to messages with your left hand. You'll need to text people with your left hand. Keep in mind, your life would actually change, not just your lifting, from a pec tear. So before you say like, I'm not going to stop, I'm just going to keep going, I felt this injury, understand that a pec tear is a life-changing injury. Now, are there ways, to go about life after a pec tear? Absolutely. Listen to anybody that's had a pec tear, they'll say it wasn't fun, but there's ways to get through it. But if you have a pec tear, it will absolutely change your life. Probably not in a good way. So that is why I really, really push the envelope of stop. The pec is not one of those pains that is like, yeah, if I keep pushing it, it'll go away. Nerve pain, stuff like that, maybe that's a little bit different. If you're having like, oh, my back's a little bit sore today, I'm just going to roll out and feel better. That's a little bit different. But something like a pec, it's giving you a chance. It gives you a chance. There is no, amount of shoulder rotations. If you're having kind of like a stiff shoulder, you could do some shoulder rotations. But something like your pec, you will not just be able to say like, let me massage it for a couple of minutes and then get back to it. It doesn't work that way. Your pec does not work like that. Other muscles in your body may work like that. It depends on the muscle. I'm not gonna say which one, but let's say your hamstrings are sore. If you stretch your hamstrings a little bit more, and then you do some deadlifts, your hamstrings may actually feel better. Your pec is not that. Yeah, I promise you, your pec is not that. If you do some work, you may actually make the pec worse, and then you go onto the lift, and that's how you get the injury. So hopefully this, informed you. This didn't just give you the 3 tips. It's actually informed you how the shoulder works, how the pec works, why, like, when some people get a tear, you'll see it in their bicep. Let me know if you want more educational videos like this. I really just wanted to make this because I feel like a lot of people don't understand that a pec tear can happen to anybody. It's not just these big steroided up guys. Anybody can tear a pec. It doesn't matter where you're at in lifting. So go ahead, like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video with your friends to help keep them healthy, happy, safe, whatever. And happy lifting. Go ahead, like, comment, subscribe. Blake went signing out. Peace.